Jeremy Clarkson stood in a tractor shed in 2020, staring at 1,000 acres of barley nobody wanted. The big maltsters weren't interested in small batches from a TV presenter playing at farming. The grain merchants offered prices that wouldn't cover his diesel. His farm manager, Caleb Cooper, told him straight, they were going to lose money on every single ton. Most people would have written it off and gone back to filming. Clarkson didn't. He'd been drinking beer for 50 years. Proper British bitter, the kind vanishing from pubs across the country. Standing in that shed, surrounded by grain nobody wanted, he had the idea that became Hawkstone Brewery. He named it after Hawkstone Park, a Georgian estate in Shropshire that once amazed the aristocracy, then fell derelict by the 1990s. Not clever marketing. A statement. This brewery was about remembering what Britain used to make. Hawkstone launched in October 2020, mid-pandemic, when pubs were shut and brewing was on its knees. Everyone thought he'd lost the plot. He hadn't. People were home more, with holiday money to spare, desperate for small luxuries. Within weeks, Hawkstone was selling out faster than they could brew it. Here's what actually separates it from every other celebrity drink. The barley comes from Clarkson's own farm and neighboring farms, a few miles away. Not shipped from Germany because it's cheaper that month. Grown in Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire by farmers who've worked that land for generations. It sounds romantic. It's actually just good business. Local barley costs more to produce. It also means every pint sold puts money directly into struggling British farms. British people have spent decades being told lager is German, Czech, Danish, never British. The big breweries have always been happy to reinforce that, because it let them brew cheap lager under foreign names at premium prices. Clarkson looked at that wisdom and ignored it completely. The industry dismissed Hawkstone as a vanity project that would quietly disappear. 2 years later, it was in Tesco, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Morrison's, outselling craft beers that had been on shelves for a decade. Then the farm shop happened. Tens of thousands descending on a tiny Cotswold village, queuing an hour to get into a shed. Every visitor saw Hawkstone everywhere. Every episode of Clarkson's farm showed the beer being made, sold, drunk on screen. Product placement money genuinely couldn't buy, because it was real. The beer actually came from that farm. Hawkstone isn't cheap. A 4-pack costs roughly what premium imported lagers cost, sometimes more. Every consultant would call that suicide. But Clarkson wasn't competing with Carling or Foster's. He was competing with Peroni and Estrella, and Hawkstone had a story none of them could match. In 2022, 3 products launched in quick succession: a Pilsner, an IPA, a cider. The industry expected failure. All 3 sold strongly from day one because each was developed properly, with real brewers who knew what they were doing. The cider particularly annoyed the big cider companies because it exposed how little actual apple most mass-market cider contains. Hawkstone's is made from real cider apples grown in the Vale of Evesham and the Cotswolds. Within months, it was outselling Strongbow and Magners in supermarkets. By 2023, Hawkstone had a distribution problem. Selling well in supermarkets, struggling to get into pubs, because the big breweries controlled pub distribution through tied houses and exclusivity deals. Clarkson's answer was direct. Better margins for independent pubs than the big breweries offered, plus personal support and direct delivery. Small breweries had tried this before and failed, but his fame meant pubs could use Hawkstone as a marketing tool, and it actually brought people through the door. Within a year, over 500 independent pubs stocked it. Many reported it outselling their traditional lagers. The brewery employs dozens of people from surrounding villages, many who'd lost work when local factories closed or farms mechanized. Clarkson pays above industry standard, on the logic that if you want people to care about quality, you pay them enough to live properly. Staff turnover is almost non-existent. The sustainability story here is measurable, not marketing waffle. Barley grown within miles means minimal transport. Solar panels on the brewery roof power the process. Spent grain goes back to Clarkson's farm to feed cattle, a genuinely closed loop. He's been open about what hasn't worked too, which is exactly why people trust the claims that do. Hawkstone also runs brewery tours for schools, not to encourage drinking, but to show teenagers where food actually comes from, that barley becomes beer, that brewing is chemistry in action. It's enlightened self-interest. Good for the brand, good for reconnecting young people with British agriculture. In 2023, a major distribution deal followed. Observers assumed it meant selling out. It didn't. The deal specifically protected local sourcing and existed purely for logistics, because retailers were requesting Hawkstone by name, something that almost never happens with a new brand. Within months, sales tripled. Late 2023, Clarkson announced export plans to Europe and beyond. The industry laughed. British lager exported to Germany and Belgium. But his reasoning held. Millions of British expats wanted a taste of home, and Hawkstone's story travels well internationally. By 2024, a winter warmer ale solved the seasonal slump every brewery faces in January and February. Darker, richer, built to drink by a fire. It sold out within weeks. Sales in those 2 months jumped 40% year on year. That same year, Michelin-starred restaurants started building pairing menus around Hawkstone, unheard of for a lager. It exposed the brand to wealthy diners who'd never buy it in a supermarket but trusted it on a restaurant menu. Walk into the farm shop and you'll see almost as much Hawkstone merchandise as beer. T-shirts, hats, bottle openers. It looks like shameless commercialism. It's actually smart, higher margins than the beer itself, and every person wearing the logo is a walking advertisement they paid for. Here's the number that actually matters. Hawkstone Brewery is now valued at an estimated £75 million, and still growing. But talk to Clarkson about it, and he doesn't lead with the money. He leads with the farmers who now have a guaranteed buyer for their barley, the workers with secure jobs, the pubs that found a product that actually brings people through the door. That's the real story here. Not a celebrity slapping his name on a product somebody else made. A genuinely built business, real ingredients, real people, real risk, that turned a shed full of unwanted barley into a £75 million brand and helped keep British farming alive while doing it. So here's the question worth asking. How many other British industries are sitting on exactly this kind of opportunity and just haven't found the right stubborn person to build it yet? Tell us in the comments, have you tried Hawkstone and what did you think?